Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Now, let's get this show on the road.
Get yourself set up for the year, and once you get your ski lesson in and your rentals and you decide you want to try shooting biathlon, next thing you know, you'll be addicted to that and you'll be out there as a biathlete skiing races a couple times a month.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, thank you for coming on and joining this podcast for another week. We are on episode 22, if you can believe it or not. And I'm super excited about this episode, Joel. We're talking some science.
Yes.
And some of the things that I actually talk about in my class as far as nucleation of water droplets, turning them into snow, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, from a science standpoint, this interview could have gone in a whole different direction, but I tried to keep my science geekness out of this.
Gosh, you did a great job. You did a great job containing yourself. I know you were excited for this one.
It is. It's a good episode. I mean, I think you guys are going to enjoy. We're going to be talking about a U.S. Olympic training facility right here in Northeast Wisconsin in Brillion, and it's the Ariens Nordic Center, a biathlon training center.
It's first of all, I'm just completely blown away that this is literally in our backyard. Remember when we talked to Joe Vandenacker and he said that there was a creek that ran under the Bonteball, and I was just blown away. I'm like equally blown away on this. I mean, Tash, in Brillion, there's a U.S. Olympic training center for the biathlon. I mean, I can't even I can't even fathom that. And then couple of this is open to the public. I mean, this is an absolutely unbelievable facility for 5 miles of cross country skiing. They have it's lighted, but you can use it year round. You can use your inline skates, running, walking, and obviously in the winter you can cross country skiing, snowshoeing. I think they have designs for a fat tire biking area in the winter. I mean, this is unbelievable.
I think January 20th they're having a fat tire race.
Yes.
I think he mentioned.
Yes.
So. And a beautiful facility that hosts weddings and banquets, the Round Lake Farms. That facility is incredible as well. Encourage people to get out to Brillion and check this out. We have a little snow on the ground as we're recording this, and a little bit of snow overnight. And I'm sure it's absolutely beautiful out there right now.
Oh, absolutely. And they actually have a Christmas experience at the Nordic Center. So go out and check it out. I know that's something I'm going to be doing here in the next couple of weeks, going out there. And Tash, before you and I recorded, we were talking about, it's the holidays, right? Little hot chocolate and cookies and all of that. They have all of that. That's all included in your complimentary tickets at the Nordic Center, which I'm not sure I didn't even know where this was, but they have a fantastic website. Tash, you can probably describe where this is even located better than I can.
Yeah, it's just on the east side of Brillion, just on the outskirts of Brillion. Beautiful area, hilly, not super hilly, but not when you think of biathlon and you think of what you see on the Olympics. But a really nice area. Go get a good workout, get a good cup of Joe, hot chocolate after, and enjoy. Be outside and enjoy it. That's what we're here in Wisconsin for.
Absolutely, and it's exactly why we started the Newsa-Cast, to hear stories like this. But we'll get into that in a minute. Tash, how about you? I mean, you have a nice Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it's a good one. My parents are down in Florida, so we don't get to see them for Thanksgiving, but we talk with them and see how they're doing. But we get to spend some time out at the farm. Did a little bit of hunting. Will got a small deer, nice. But we get some venison sausage made and some venison hot dogs, and it was a good weekend. It's always fun to be with family. It's always fun to continue that hunting tradition. We didn't get the big buck that we're after, but if everybody got a big buck every year, hunting would be a lot different. They wouldn't be called hunting.
100%. And of course, the week started off, we had our parade episode last week with Corey and Eric, and another successful night for the parade. It was a beautiful night, actually, weather-wise, and just a great parade again. That was another great episode. I had a lot of fun talking to those guys and just to see the parade unfold again. Another successful event.
Yeah, and if you didn't catch that episode, I encourage you to. There's so much more that goes into the planning. I mean, really, the 3 Appleton parades, it's a year-long planning.
Yes.
And there's a lot that goes into that Christmas parade. So if you didn't catch that episode, I encourage you to go back and take a listen and get some of the insights into the background of what it is, and even a little bit behind the scenes of what goes into making a parade like that happen.
Absolutely. Did you get enough to eat, Tosh, this weekend?
Oh, of course. I mean, you always do on Thanksgiving,
Absolutely.
right? What's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
That's a tough one. I like it all. It's my favorite holiday. I love stuffing. It's weird because you don't.
Okay.
Why is it that we don't have stuffing more than like once or twice a year? It's so good.
It's true.
It's not good for the diet, though.
Do you like the homemade stuffing with like gizzard stuffing? Would you put raisins in and all that kind of stuff? Or are you like, give me a box of stovetop and a bunch of butter and cook it down?
At times I can do that. If I ever do stuffing, any other time that's non-holiday, it's usually the stovetop. So I'm not against that. That's for sure. But I love the homemade stuffing, and it's weird because my mom's stuffing, not to make this a cooking show, but it was okay. It was good. But I've come to discover that there's better stuffings out there. And I guess now I'm kind of partial to the ones where you put Jimmy Dean breakfast sausage in and maybe even a little apple or something, some onions, stuff like that to give it a little flavor.
Right.
And just go to town. How about you?
I feel that a lot of the food that I have on Thanksgiving, I also have during the rest of the year. But there's one thing that I don't usually have, and that's pecan pie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not good for you. It's sugar. I mean, but you can get pumpkin pie any time of the year. Make turkey. We hunt. We do some turkey hunting. So I make turkey, after a fall hunt and stuff like that, or maybe the spring season. It's the pecan pie though. I don't usually have pecan pie unless it's right around Thanksgiving.
Man, I love sweets. Tosh, there's one thing though that's really associated with Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, and that's the old Ocean Spray cranberry right out of the can. You slice that baby open, right? There you go. Giddy up.
Yeah, it better have the lines in it.
Absolutely. Well, Tosh, now that I'm hungry and ready to go eat, what do you say we get the show going, huh?
Yeah, let's mention one more thing, though. What a fantastic Packer win.
Yeah, absolutely. That was very nice. Surprisingly nice.
I was not expecting the way they looked. They looked fantastic. Came out to play against that tough Detroit team. Yeah,
Tosh, it's always special when the Packers win on Thanksgiving. It's a good start to the year, or a good start to the day, for sure.
Absolutely. It makes the sun a little brighter, the grass a little greener, and the sky a little bluer. That's for sure.
All right, Tosh, our favorite segment of the show every week, an old look at new. We take our unique look back at something maybe historical, something we don't normally think about, and maybe apply it to our area of northeastern Wisconsin. So, Tosh, what are you taking a look at in the old new?
Well, back in the day of the NFL draft, it was a little bit different than it is now. It's not the events like Green Bay is going to have it in 2025, and schools are going to be off and all kinds of stuff. But back in 1956, the draft was actually held on November 26th in Philadelphia. And that was the year that the Packers had the first pick in the NFL draft, and they chose a player out of Notre Dame, the Golden Boy, Paul Hornung.
Wow.
He was the first player who won the Heisman to be drafted number 1 in the NFL draft.
What an incredible stat. You never would have thought about that. Yeah, absolutely. The Golden Boy from Notre Dame. Red Smith's alma mater, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, he was, Lombardi stated that he was the greatest player that he ever coached. And he held records. I mean, his points record stood all the way until 2006 when Lindalian Tomlinson broke the record for points in 2006, great Charger running back. So that's a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the records, I mean, even Hudson has some amazing passing records that go on for 80 years. It's hard to believe. But
yeah,
I mean, Paul Hornung, certainly my dad had a lot of great stories about him. And we've all heard stories of the 60s Packers and seen footage. I mean, he was a great runner, very shifty with his hips. I mean, there's that famous, I can't remember what game it was, but the snow cover, the Packer sweep, and he just shifts his hips and finds the hole and scores. And I mean, he was a playboy. The stories off the field were just legendary with that guy. But man, what a team! What a team! And I'm still blown away by that stat. So the first Heisman Trophy winner to be a #1 draft pick in the NFL.
Pretty crazy.
How about that too, Tosh? November 26th is the draft.
Exactly. That shocked me too. I looked it up and I was like, this can't be right. So I had to look it up like 3 times. Yep, November 26th, 1956. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it was in Philadelphia, at a hotel in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Not quite the same as it is today.
I guess the NFL has changed a bit, huh?
A little bit. So Joe, after that, what do you have?
Well, Tash, what? One of the ideas with this segment is to take a look at northeastern Wisconsin, and I'm guilty of this. I mean, we all drive east on Highway 10 out to Manitowoc. We go through Brillion time, and right there is you never think about it, but Ariens it's the large. I mean, we cut our lawn, we blow snow, we till our lawn. We're always using Ariens equipment. You never think about it. And in 1933, I mean, Henry Ariens started another company that started in a garage. It's amazing how many companies started in a garage, but Ariens, in fact, started in a garage in 1933 in Brillion, and it's 4 generations now. It's still a family-owned business. Yeah. I mean, they are brilliant, but it's absolutely hard to believe. And as we talked to Sean during the interview, a lot of the reason Biathlon Nordic Center was built was because of an Ariens snowblower. Out the other side of the world, somebody knew what Ariens was because they were using an Ariens snowblower. And to me, it's appropriate to have this in an old look at new, because it's a huge part of this area. I mean, they employ, I don't know, 1,500 plus, people. I mean, it's mammoth, that company, that organization. And then what they do to give back to this community is we're going to find out in Sean's interview. And it's amazing what they do.
Yeah, I drive through Brillion almost on a weekly basis out to the farm in Reedsville. And it is an amazing company. They do a lot for that community. It is the life and blood of Brillion. And it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. And, the Nordic Center is just going to add on to their legacy. It's fantastic. I mean, everybody wants to have an Ariens snowblower because they're dependable. They know what they're doing. So it's a great company. Love to hear everything that they're doing for that community and support that little small town.
No, absolutely. And there's way too much to mention, but they do have a really cool museum. It's worth going to and taking a look. So I would highly recommend that. And Ariens speaks to what we do. I mean, thank you for everything that they do for giving back to the community. And we enjoy having them in an old look at new.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, you are in for a treat. You're going to learn about everything from snowmaking to trails to biathlon with the one and only Sean Becker of the Ariens Nordic Center, the GM, first ever GM of the Nordic Center.
So the Ariens Nordic Center is something you kind of maybe heard that, something's being built, but you never really thought about it. This is the first time I actually sat down, went to the website, which everybody should do to start off with, because it's a fantastic website. It gives you an idea of what we're talking about. But I had no idea what this place was. But then I started reading about your story. And I mean, you grew up, you found a niche on how to groom trails and make snow, basically, right? I mean, that's your niche. That's what your expertise is, right?
Yeah, and it was all on a volunteer basis. We had this problem, and because I come from the southern part of the state, and so I still live right in Delafield area, and it's a little bit of a hike, but this opportunity doesn't come along very often, so you got to take that. But the problem we had here is we didn't have natural snow, and the ski trails that I skied on as a youth. We're right in this area, and there was a park manager here at Lapham Peak that named Ed Music that was starting this snowmaking operation, and I thought, boy, this is ambitious, and I want to find some way to get back to a sport and a venue that had really helped me grow as an athlete and as a person too. And so decided to get involved in that snowmaking part of the operation. Knew absolutely nothing about it. I knew about waterworks background, and I knew about electricity, and I knew how to make a pressure balanced loop, and I knew how to run crews, and I thought, no, this is going to be a big opportunity. And then I get into it, and I find out it's like myself and Ed, and then a guy by the name of John McCarthy and a few other guys that were around that for a long time. The same kind of feeling. They wanted to get back into what was happening at Lapham Peak, and then try to be able to get the season started sooner or make it through the season when we didn't have natural snow. So it was really kind of figuring out how to make snow when you don't know much about it. So that was kind of, I don't want to say like early internet, but it was when there wasn't a lot of information out there. So as I learned, I would impart that knowledge out to other people, and made like snowmaking videos, and in the early days of Twitter was trying to keep people up to date on what was happening out there. So taught myself that, and then realized that snowmobiles were really difficult pieces of equipment to groom with. Historically, that's what parks have always used, but they burn up belts when you've got these big hills that we had to climb. So I researched about ATVs and adding tracks to them, and how those would be beneficial, and found an ATV and found some tracks in Chautauqua, and drove all the way up and grabbed my tracks and put them together on this machine. Bought a used grooming implement from a guy named Eric Anderson up at ABR, which is active backwoods retreat up in Ironwood, Michigan, and he's just an authority on grooming. So I figured if I bought a piece of equipment from him, I could also get a bunch of information from him at the same time, and it actually worked out really good. And a great relationship to have with a great guy. He was a groomer for Olympics and things like that at Salt Lake City. So I came back and started learning how to do that with that machine, and then felt, a friend of mine and I, Ben Lund, who is a Toco tech team rep in the area, which Toco is a ski wax. And so they have tech team guys all over the place. And he and I got into a master's program together and decided that we were going to do mobile cross-country ski lessons. So we took that to Bayshore Town Center on the roof of a parking structure there that they really didn't do any plowing of, which was great. And then St. Joe's Hospital out in Jackson also wanted to have something similar. And so we were able to produce that in those areas and give free lessons to people every single week that we had snow during the winter. So, wow. Yeah. And then, learning the snowmaking operation that we had there at Lapham was, we didn't have a huge pond to make snow with, and we had a deep well, and we didn't really have a water source yet. So we would take turns, Ed and I, sleeping in the pump house with an alarm clock on our chest. And then every time that we'd time out how long it took to fill a collapsible fire tank, which is basically a big tarp and a frame. And, and we'd have to reach over every 20 minutes, the alarm would go off, and you'd reach over and you'd turn the pump on, and then you'd go back to sleep and set it for 10 minutes. And then at 10 minutes, you knew it was full, and you'd shut it off. So you had these the circadian rhythm was really screwed up because you were on and off and on and off. But we would take turns doing that. And as we built that system up with the park, staff and volunteers, we built that up into a viable snowmaking operation. And I had stopped doing it kind of cold turkey 11 years ago. My son was born in October, and we found out 2 weeks after he was born that he had cystic fibrosis. So my wife called me as I was out, like trying to help, get snow guns set up and ready to go for the winter. And she called and said, "We got problems. You got to get home and be dad now." So that's what I did. And it kind of stopped at cold turkey. And then oddly enough, friends of mine, a good friend of mine, Doug Bodock, who I taught how to ski way back in the day. And now he's an elite level world ranked Nordic skier. He kept saying, "You got to go check this thing out. This thing's got your name written all over it." So I went on, and after a couple interviews, and that's kind of how I ended up at Ariens Nordic Center.
Wow. I have a question. I mean, going back to your childhood, you obviously were involved in skiing. How did that happen for you?
I grew up in a smaller town, outside of Milwaukee, and we didn't have like a ski team in high school or anything. And I had a family that owned a ski shop in Watertown that my parents were big cross country skiers. They'd go on these trips to Three Lakes and have these, week long trips with friends. And they'd come back with stories about guys with clister in their hair for a week. And so if you know what clister is, it's a really sticky wax used in warm conditions, so it's like toothpaste and it's on everybody's car. And, it was just really cool to be involved in that culture. And so, my parents had me skiing from a young kid. So I would see some of these guys at the archery club is where we had our ski races. And the guy who owned the ski shop would go and trudge in the ski trails. And then we'd go out and ski on them in the races afterwards. And they were pretty ad hoc. And, the timing was, a stopwatch and a piece of, with a clipboard, basically, way different than it is nowadays. But I was skiing with some really inspirational guys, and the Momarts family in Watertown owned that ski shop. And John Momarts, who was a few years ahead of me in school, was really inspirational because he was a really good skier, and he ended up having some surgery. He had a brain tumor, and I remember being in school, and the whole school was like, my gosh, this is something we never see at, a 7th, 8th grade level, somebody having surgery and for that sort of thing. And he bounced back, and he was, in the Junior Olympics and was skied at NMU in college, and ended up turning into a race director and organizer for one of the larger ski races, marathons in northern Michigan, that goes from Ishpeming all the way down to the NMU Dome and finishes there. And it's called the Nakamonon. And I saw John, early on skiing well, and I thought, but he'd call my mom and say, "Can you take him to this race?" Or "Can I take him to this race?" And then they'd wax up the tips and tails of my skis and send me off. And I felt like I was getting to ski with these really good skiers, and so that was inspirational for me. And then when I was in kind of skied just as a citizen skier, as a youngster. And when I was in middle school, I didn't make the cut for the basketball team. And the way I felt like kind of got discarded as, you didn't make the team, well, you're worthless to us now. And I thought, well, all right, I'm going to be a cross country skier. I just decided, I'm going to go full on with this cross country skiing thing. Got turned on to the guy who coached John Momarts earlier on, and his name is John Spouty, and he was a woodworker outside of Watertown, and just a phenomenal craftsman. And one of the really cool things about working with him as a middle schooler was that he never really treated me like I was a kid. It wasn't ever, kids say dumb things, and you never get treated that way. And so he let me grow and as an athlete and as a young guy, coming up through high school, and take me to these races out in the northern Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere, and it was a great opportunity to have to try to really get to be a good cross country skier and try to become a good person as well. So it was great to have good guidance from other than my dad and my mom, that's having that, I figured they put me on the skis, they sent me in the right direction, and then I could meet all these different people along the way that helped get me, up to that next point.
it's so, I think every single interview we've done, it always comes down to a couple people who are super big influences. And it's a common theme. It's amazing to hear about people who have just, I'm going to take you under my wing and I'm going to do this for you and help you out. And it's always good to hear that. I can think back to our childhood and stuff like that as well. And that's awesome to hear. It's just incredible people taking you to different places. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was great too. We had our kickoff last September. We had the U.S. Biathlon national team here, and they were doing a kickoff event, and I was helping organize everything and run everything. I look across the barricades, and there's my ski coach and his wife. They came out to support me in my new role, and to take all of my background and everything else that I've had along the way, and to actually turn that, as you said before, Joe, niche into a job that doesn't always get to happen. So that's why my managing director said before, there's days that Sean's just still pinching himself, and that is true. That is true.
I love that. Those are the best kind of jobs. And I'm sure you love your job just because it's like that. Did you, even growing up, did you always kind of have that MacGyver mentality where you're just fixing things, understand how things work? You just make it work somehow, some way?
Yes. That's a testament to my dad. I worked with him for a lot of years in water treatment, and it's always problem solving, early on putting a screwdriver in my hand and teaching me how to change my own oil and those kind of things I'm trying to impart onto my son. And it's like, when you don't turn the screwdriver the right way, I start to get upset, but I got to understand there's a learning curve there. So, you use a hammer for a reason and a screwdriver for a reason. So, those kind of things. I fell into that. I went into entertainment production as a side job while I was doing, the water treatment work. And once I could get my dad always said, if you get your real stuff done all day, you can go do whatever you want. And so that turned into the moonlighting as, in entertainment work and concerts work, staging work, things like that. And every day that job was 80%, troubleshooting, 10% doing what you're supposed to be doing, your job, and the other 10% is just getting your butt handed to you all day long.
Right. So, right.
There's always, you try to see all the angles, you hope to try to see all the pitfalls. And I think that's kind of why I really like the grooming aspect of things and the snowmaking aspect of things, because it is all troubleshooting, and you're making snow at 3:00 in the morning, and that's when your temperatures and your humidities are right. So, that to me is that troubleshooting and learning about safety and trying to keep yourself and everybody safe. You learn from your experiences, and a day that you don't get yelled at for something or chewed out or learn something's a day lost. So that's kind of that MacGyver part of it that it's interesting, because I've been called that quite a few times. And I like, not too many people know what that means anymore, but I'm glad you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. What do people criticize you for? Like the conditions of the trail? Is that the big one?
Well, yeah, in some respects, snowmaking and grooming is a thankless position. And anybody that hasn't groomed or made snow, they don't actually would understand what that means. But it is tough, because everybody thinks that when it's 32 degrees outside, you should be making snow. Why aren't you making snow? And there's a science behind it that people need to understand. Kind of I'll take a term from Sten Feldheim, who was the NMU coach, cross country ski coach, and it was a how to, when to, why to of kind of skiing, and it's actually of snowmaking. You need to have that same. You have to subscribe to that same thing. There's a certain temperature and a certain humidity that you're able to make snow at, but then you also have to be responsible with your snowmaking and your resources that you have. You have so much water to use, you have so much time to make snow, and you've got electricity costs and everything else. So you have to really do it purposefully and responsibly. And that can start to become a little bit of a problem because everybody like, well, you have snow machines, so you should be making snow. And I think some people think it's a machine gun where you just shoot it on the trail and you're done. But there's like a curing process you have to go through with the snowmaking, and you're 3:00 in the morning and you're wet pants and jacket and hair and everything is frozen, and you're just trying to muddle your way through. So that's normally I don't really want to call it a criticism so much, but that's what we kind of get hit with frequently. I've always been hit with that. So way back early on when I was doing the snowmaking at Lapham Peak, I made like a snowmaking 101 video, and it was more so for the education process and more of the like the troubleshooting aspect of things. To me, led me to subscribe to the fact that if you educate people ahead of time and do some PR work, that you can help kind of level those expectations a little bit. And then the other problem that we sometimes run into is that I want us grooming every single night. So one thing that I always say, and this is my saying, it's not Ariens Nordic saying, but my saying was world-class every day. I want people when they come out to ski to have a world-class experience. The venue's already world-class, but if we can make the snow conditions world-class as best as we possibly can, then when people come out, they have a better view of the product and a better view of the venue. And you're kind of only as good as your last trail report that's on, one of the websites or social media or something like that. So you want to try to make sure that we're doing that. So I tell my guys when they're grooming that they should want to, at the end of the night, lock the gate, take a picture of it, and then send it out to their friends and not let anybody ski on it. You want it to be that good of a product at the end of the night. And so by doing that and grooming every single night, there's other places, parks that have cross-country ski trails. But in those parks, oftentimes they got to go clear the parking lots first, or they got to go make sure that the buildings are open and cleaned up, and they're not necessarily grooming at those points in time. So there's some days that it might not be groomed on Monday, on a Tuesday, if it hasn't snowed in a while. But when we do it every single day, now we're creating this really nice surface for everybody. And I've noticed some people say, there's a little bit of a ridge in between the two parts of the trail. And and I get it. I ski it, and I can see where something like that is. But at the same time, you could go somewhere else, and it looks like they groomed with a Sherman tank last night, and that's acceptable. So, we kind of make our own bed and have to lay in it, I guess you could say. But I'm happy to get that. If it is criticism, at least I know what the rebuttal is for it, and can explain the situation. So that's kind of what we get.
Sure.
So last year, I'm in a total different boat. My kids are hockey players, so I put a rink in our backyard, and it was a terrible year for ice and for hockey. Our rink didn't get used a lot. So how did conditions and, last year, looking back, how was the weather for the Nordic Center?
It's terrible. It was terrible, just like what you experienced.
Yeah.
In I don't want to say in my how many years of snowmaking, I remember times when it wasn't good, and then it was really good. You always want to get like that 20 degree and below, really dry air, and then you can really excel in your snowmaking. And the old snow guns we had, like the 1970s vintage snow guns that we used at Lapham Peak, were really excelled at like 15 degrees, really dry air, and they would make a ton of snow. But I never really remembered a time where we had 50 degrees and rain, and it was a week long of that stint. We literally made snow in the end of November, and I believe we made snow for 2 or 3 days, and we didn't make snow for another month.
Yeah.
And it was just because of that. You need, when you make snow and you leave it in a pile, or what they call a whale. They call it a whale because it's heavier snow in the front of the pile and lighter snow at the end. So it kind of looks like a whale coming up out of the water. Oh. And then you put them all together. So they call them whales. I mean, it was an older term, but still holds true still today. So when you make that pile of snow, or that whale of snow, it kind of acts like magic shell. If you remember the chocolate you put over your ice cream, same sort of concept. The water will shed off the top of it. So if you make snow and then you see like this, like I know the guys up in Hayward at Berkey made snow, but there's going to be like 2 more weeks where they won't be able to make any snow. We got these 40-degree days, 50-degree days, and then there's some rain in between all that. Just leave those piles sit and not plow them out so that it sheds the water. And then when you know that you have got a good stretch of good temperatures, then you can go and push all those whales out together, and then it ends up making, an even trail. So, we plow ours out so that we've got about 2.5 feet deep all the way around our trail system, and about 7.5 meters wide. So you're, about 24 feet or so of trail width. So that's kind of what Mother Nature kept delivering those. We'd have those times where we'd be open for 4 or 5 days and then closed again for 3 or 4 days. So when I look back at it, it was such a scramble. We had about 40-ish days, 43, 44 days worth of actual skiing this year where we were able to be open for that. But really difficult with water infiltrating into the base. The nice thing is we're private. We can close, a state park or county park can't close the ski trails. They can recommend people don't go out there. But as soon as they go out there and rut it up, as soon as it freezes, you've got a disaster on your hands. So we were able to slow that down a little bit. People weren't too happy about it, but after the fact, they come back and they're like, oh, we can't believe we get to ski again. So with Mother Nature being a real problem this year, we still were kind of south of Highway 8 and north of where Lapham Peak and, the guys over in Blackhawk that have man-made snow. There wasn't a lot in that area of the state. So we really had a lot of good business just because of that.
Is this like the state-of-the-art snowmaking equipment now at this facility for you?
Yes, absolutely. We have 17 snow guns. 14 of those are fan guns. So your traditional, when you see it, people call them snow cannon or something that you see on the Alpine hills. Generally, those are mounted 30 feet in the air on poles, so they get good hang time, and then they can just swivel them due to wind speed and direction and everything. And ours are on carriages, so we're mobile. We move them around on the facility. So we've got a pump house that houses a pair of pumps. We are able to deliver 750 gallons per minute out to the snowmaking system, and that's at 425 psi. So it's that part of it alone. With our pond, we got about 10 million gallons of water that we can utilize. And we have buried pipe throughout the entire course. So alpine areas, historically, they've got the reservoir down low, or they've got a reservoir up high that pumps down, gravity fed, and then they feed back up. But then they have to drain all the pipes out because the pipes are laying on top of the ground. In our case, they're buried 8 feet below the surface in many areas. So we're allowed to keep our system charged year round. And then we've got power at each of those locations. So we just take the snow gun over with 150 foot of cord on the end of it. And our hydrants and our pedestals are roughly about 200 feet apart. And we're able to set those snow guns out with 100 feet of hose or 150 feet of hose, make a whale, pull them back, make another whale, and then pull it out of that space and move it to another location. So I can literally show up. If I have my snow gun set up ahead of time, anticipation of making snow, I can show up, go to the pump house, be making snow in 15 minutes.
Wow.
Snowmaking for Nordic doesn't happen a lot. It's a lot of infrastructure. Some of the areas that have it, they'll double duty with an alpine area that already has snowmaking, and they'll kind of shoehorn their Nordic area in to be able to use some of that snow for it. But there's not a lot of areas that have it buried pipe. And Lapham does have that. They've got an HDPE system over there that we put in because it was easier for us to fuse pipe together than to hire welders out. So we could fuse it with a machine, flop it into the trench, bury it with our power, and get it all up and running. Here they had the gas line guys come in and weld the pipe together, and it's just seeing it happening was just an amazing process that they were going through. It looked like they were putting in a subdivision, for water and power and all that kind of stuff. So it is truly the snow guns. Their process we use a company called HKD. There's quite a few different snowmaking companies that are out there. These guys have pioneered some parts of their technology that they have on their snow guns. I always historically used in other companies, and I've fallen in love with the machines that these guys have. Their nucleation process is pretty slick, and that kind of goes into the science of all of it, because you have water that goes into the snow guns, and it comes out through a nozzle, and you essentially just have, you know, a mist, and that water is being atomized. It doesn't really turn into a snowflake when it's being atomized. You have to have a nucleator. So what they have is 4 nucleators that are set up inside of this kind of ring or this halo that they have. And that is met with air and water together at a point in the gun. And that's coming in at a ratio of 700 to 1. And that creates a particle as that comes out of the snow gun, and it acts as a catalyst then to create more facets onto those nucleated water droplets. And the rest of the water then, through convection currents and the fan blowing process, creates more snow. So the key, though, is that you have to be, regardless of whose snow gun you have to be at 28 degrees wet bulb, and that's there's a scale that they have for that. So you could have 0% humidity and 36 degrees in its potential to make snow, but it's going to be pretty expensive snow because your pumps are running the same, your snow guns running, the fans running the same. It's just how much water are you putting into the snowmaking system or into the snow guns at that point. So these snow guns do really well in the open areas that we have, which most of our venue is open, kind of like an Olympic venue where you got a lot of good vantage points. But we do have some areas that go in the woods, and we can't use those big fan guns in the woods because the water, when it's coming out of the gun and it's making snow, it's fairly wet. And if you catch tree branches, now you're pruning with your snow guns, and you don't want to do that. We want to be a little more careful and responsible with it. So we have these guns called phasers, and they're just a head that is probably 20 or so inches tall, has a bunch of nozzles on it, and it has that air compressor on it as well. So it's got nucleators that are built into the gun, but it makes a band of snow that's super narrow, I don't know, 10 degrees wide. But at low temperatures, we'll put those out if we don't have any wind, and you walk away and you come back a couple hours later and the snow's almost touching that phaser, and it's like a stick that's 15 feet tall, and it's like, whoa, and I got to drive the snowcat up to push that over. So it's sometimes pretty surprising in the right conditions. But, you know, in the past, I only had 5, 6, 8 snow guns to work with. Now, when you're set up with, 17 snow guns, it's kind of like a golf course. When you get done mowing the first hole and you get yourself all the way around, you got to start over again. When you set these snow guns up, you get done with 17, you got to run back and look, is the wind affecting number one? Is it still making snow? And out of all of this high-tech stuff that we have a very high-tech tool that we use to check whether or not we're making snow. So we start firing this stuff out. It's flying in the air. You get the gun running, you set up another one. You want to make sure you're not making it too wet, because if you're making it too wet, it's really, you're making rainbows is what you're doing. You're not really making snow. Yep. But at night, you can't see that, right? So you walk out in front of the gun and you hold your sleeve up. And if your sleeve turns white, you're making snow. If it's wet, it's raining. Time to go back and turn it down a little bit. So with as bigger rainbows as we can make with these things shooting about 300 feet during the day, I was starting to think, is there a way we can rent these things out to like kids parties, and you can say, I have a true rainbow, or 2 guns and get yourself a double rainbow or something.
Yes.
We might be able to. I had the mobile grooming thing. Now we're going to have a mobile birthday party rainbow set up. See how well that goes over.
Is there any better spot for you than 3:00 in the morning and your 17 guns are just blowing a great mist on a cool winter night? That's got to be peaceful as heck. When
the wind's not blowing and the snow coming out of the guns, you start kind of getting these steam plumes around things. And when it's super quiet, the thing that you use the most, and I got into this with the old SMI guns that we had at Lapham, is they had a thing on it to tell you if the gun was getting out of balance, and it was a pipe that was around another pipe. And if it was rattling, then you would know you're out of balance and you got ice buildup and you got to go fix the gun. So you just stick your head out of the shop and you'd listen. And if you heard a rattling, you'd go out there and fix it. With these things, it's just like just constant white noise in the background. And it's really something to see when you look at it. My favorite is, if I get everything going and then I get crew running and then I go home and then come back, and I'm coming back just as the sun's coming up, the pictures that you can take when you've got the snow going and these steam plumes happening around the snow guns, it's picturesque for sure. And so, yes, peaceful, calm, it's all that. And then you get in the piston bully and then shove it all around and destroy all of it. So it's part of the process.
That's right. It was nice while it lasted.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I was just going to, everything you just described. I mean, this place is an absolutely insane facility. It just begs the question, we're sitting here in, Brillion, Wisconsin. How and why was this facility built? How was it built? I mean, it's unbelievable that it's right in our backyard.
Yeah. That was kind of the question too, that I had, why is this happening there, in Brillion? Why is the Ariens family, why are they doing this there? And so a little bit of the history on it is that, there's an athlete on the national team by the name of Paul Schomer. If you're familiar with Paul at all, he's from the Kimberly area. Yep. So he's over on World Cup, and I don't know exactly, I haven't gotten out of him the city or where he was over in Europe, but he saw an Ariens snow thrower in one of the power equipment stores over there in Europe. So, no, wait a minute, Ariens, they're in my backyard, they're in Brillion. And at the time, US Biathlon was going to be losing their main sponsor. So he contacted Ariens and asked, would you guys be willing to sponsor the US Biathlon team? And they said yes. And, I thought to myself, I want to meet who skis in the family. And, nobody shoots biathlon. Nobody had skied at that time. Now they do. But before that, I think they fell in love with the sport. They were over in, my understanding was it was in Ruhpolding, and saw it there. And, in biathlon in Europe is like NFL, games here in the States. They'll have upwards, some venues they'll have 100,000 people watching biathlon. If you get a chance to watch any biathlon, World Cup biathlon, and make sure you watch like pre-COVID, because all of these people in the stands and out on the course, and they like camp out in the snow, for days. Some of these guys, saw one time they like dragged a big kettle out and they stoked it with wood, and that was their hot tub, and they did it on a corner where the TV camera always comes by, and they're all drunk in there and writing their Norwegian flags on their chests and all that kind of stuff. But when the athletes enter the range, you could hear a pin drop. So it's kind of like PGA meets Super Bowl. And they have 5 shots at the range. They hit the first shot, the crowd goes absolutely crazy, but then they stop again because the next shot's going to be seconds after that. And this goes on and on and on for 30 athletes around the course the whole time that they're skiing. So I think that the family, really fell in love with the sport by seeing it there. And then also, being able to help, with their needs. It's a really small organization compared to US Ski and Snowboard or with Alpine or anything else, or some of the other the US sports. So they have to raise their own funds and come up with their own ways to get their athletes, and the athletes fundraise themselves too and get their own sponsors. So I think that they felt that this was a good opportunity, and again, they're in Europe, so there's snow throwers and lawnmowers over there. So that's some good exposure as well, I believe. But so part of when they said, what else can we do for US Biathlon? And at the time, the CEO of US Biathlon was a gentleman by the name of Max Cobb, who kind of came up through the ranks and was their CEO. He was with them for 30 to 35 years, somewhere in between there. And I remember when I interviewed, I got to meet Max, and he's asking me these questions. And it's kind of like getting to meet, if you're in football, getting to meet the president of the NFL, and he's going to interview you. It's kind of shaking in my boots at the time, but super easy guy to talk to, and really, really smart guy, and forgotten more about biathlon than I'll ever know, obviously. But, they said, what else can we do? And he said, well, we need to elevate the plan for Olympics. We need to get some U.S. athletes in the medal counts for biathlon, and so the thing is to feed the pipeline, and to feed that pipeline, we need youth, junior athletes to start now, and then hopefully by the time they're through high school, college area, those ages, then they're really good, and then they can pick them up in these camps that they do, these talent ID camps, and see if we can get them into the World Cup and then into the Olympics. So the idea was to build something in the Midwest that would be able to help Midwest athletes like Paul Schomer and Deidre Irwin, who's another one from Pulaski. And they're both here. They train when they're in town. They call me up and say, "Hey, can I come and shoot and ski?" And it's like, "Yep, I'll brush everything off and get it all clean and ready for you guys to go." And they're out there skiing and training at the same time other athletes are. So I think part of that, providing this venue to be able to help the local clubs that have biathlon, be able to have a place where it's consistent. It's snow all winter. We've got roller skiing during the summer, and that just doesn't all happen in one venue very frequently. The Olympic venues out at Mount Van Hovenberg, which is in Lake Placid, they have a biathlon range, same that we have, and then they have roller skiing as well. And you go out to Soldier Hollow, which is where the 2002 Winter Olympics were, and they have roller skiing and a biathlon range, and they have snowmaking, and so we're kind of at the same level of those venues. And we recently just got our venue designation as National Training Center for U.S. Biathlon, which is great too. So I think that building it and getting it to this point and getting that recognition for what they've done is going to help build the pipeline for U.S. biathlon going forward. So I think the love of it, but the family saw being able to back a U.S. sport that's happening over there, and then being able to build it here, and it's a field of dreams situation. We build it, they will come, and they've been coming. We get teams here all the time, and for to have a group of 60 out there on a Saturday morning roller skiing is not unheard of, and wow. It's great for the leadership to be able to come and see that sort of thing happening, because we are, I sound like I'm tooting our own horn here, but I mean, this is unique. This is so unique to have in this area. And so it's great for us to be able to provide that.
Over the years, does the entire U.S. biathlon team come here, stay in the area, train for, I don't know, a training camp or something under that scenario, preparing for the Olympics?
So we've had them about once a year. We see them for a few days, and then we try to build some sort of event around that, where they'll do an exhibition race or something for us. Or we did a pro-am race this last time they were here, which was great. So that young athletes could get teamed up with a national level athlete and a national team athlete and somebody that skied the Olympics, and you get the time to not only compete with them, but then ask them the questions about, why is your rifle like this? And how did you get to this point? And how do I get to where you are? So that's unique to have. So, and then, like I said, Paul and Deidre, they're here frequently throughout the year. As they stop in, they're able to come and train. I think Deidre a couple times a year is here. Paul's here a couple times a year. Other than that, the U.S. Biathlon organization will put on what they call talent ID camps, and they've got athletes that they would do all the way from Alaska all the way through West Coast, Central, East Coast. And so they want to ID those younger athletes that are coming up, and their shooting skills and their skiing skills. And so during the summer, we have a few times when those coaches are here, and it's like an invitational type situation. They'll bring in athletes from we had Midwest was our primary area here. So we had Indiana, and which was interesting, we have biathletes that come all the way from Indiana to work out here at times. Wow. And they're obviously state champions, because I think there's like 2 of them total. But Michigan, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, anybody in the Midwest that has biathletes, and those team captains come and they get their athletes into the event, and then they run them for a few days. And this last year was the first one of those that we had. So it was great to have, a handful of coaches from U.S. Biathlon, and then about maybe 15 athletes or so, maybe 18 athletes that we had here. And, all younger high school aged athletes that are wanting to get to that next level, and to have that shooting and skiing coaching coming directly from former Olympic athletes like Tim Burke and from Lowell Bailey and John Farah and then we get Brian Halligan here too, who's a youth and junior development coach, and these guys are just being around, breathing that rare air. I'm able to get some of that information. So the next time that the high school kids are out, they're saying, "Hey, what am I doing wrong?" And I might not know, but I did hear somebody say this before, and I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so here's what I said to them, and they take that kind of information. But I can only do so much with that with the athletes. And, if the national team athlete came and actually said something to them, the same exact thing, but then told them to do it holding the lightning rod and standing in a puddle of water, they do it, just because it's the national team athlete. So it's really important to have those guys here periodically and have them in, mix in with those athletes and even master athletes, just to give them pointers and tips on what they're doing or how they can get better too, because it's really important for us to keep not only that pipeline fed, but also have the master athletes who are going to have kids or have kids, and those kids are coming up, and we want to make sure that they get that experience as well.
What are the numbers like at the youth level, and at least in this area or Wisconsin generally, that do the sport, that ski?
Biathlon is very, very small. I've said this before, where we put on just a Nordic ski race and we get about 125 people show up for it. Biathlon, their big regional race that we held last year, I think had 75 people.
Okay.
When we hold races during the month, we have roller ski races once a month on a Sunday. We have one coming up on this Sunday. We have anywhere between 8 and 15 people show up, and that's across the board from youth all the way up through masters. There are a couple of teams locally, and I think each of their teams maybe have about 5 or 6 kids that are interested in biathlon. So they're not huge numbers.
Yeah, I would imagine. Getting back to the Nordic Center, you mentioned everything that it has, but I mean, this, if people aren't aware, I mean, this is open to the public as well. You have daily passes, yearly
That's
passes,
correct.
but you have not only the skiing, you have mountain biking and snowshoeing, and I mean, you can do just about anything you want to in the winter and summer, for that matter. I'll say it for the 5th time. It's just incredible that this is there.
Well, we appreciate that kind of review, Joe. That's so good, music to my ears. But yeah, so we have not only roller skiing during the summer and biathlon, where you can do try it programs every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. You can come out and get into a program where you can try shooting and decide if that's something that you want to get into or not. We run those with our range master, Greg Pattison, who's just an authority for me on biathlon. But and the community can come in and do that. Anybody can do it. You don't have to have any experience. We like it when groups come in to do that. We can kind of friendly competition between each other. But we also have free walking and running on our trails during the summer. And that's summer only, because once we get the snow down, there's no walking on that.
Yep.
Mountain biking is a little bit further out on our radar. We're in a planning and design process right now to get a single track course down that doesn't impact the ski trails.
Okay.
So we still want people, it's kind of a mixed use venue. It's hard to try to keep, people want to ride right down asphalt, but we don't want muddy tires on our asphalt, because we need to keep that clear for roller skiing and walking and running. And we want to get in some agility type course, and also like strider bikes for the little kiddos. So it's not just somebody that's super experienced to come out and mountain bike and they can hit jumps and do all that kind of stuff. But we'd have like a pump track involved in this, which allows mountain bikers to ride an area without even pedaling, which is pretty cool. But we'd be putting in the design phase, we have A and B lines. So if you don't want to take the jump, you can take kind of the wimp's way around the side, if that would be a way to say it, or just not as experienced. Don't feel like you want to yard sale or anything like that. It's pretty easy to go around. So we're looking at implementing that probably next fall. But in the near term, last year we were strictly Nordic skiing, and we kind of identified that our numbers aren't really high on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. So from 5 to 8 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, once we have snow, we're going to open for fat biking. And when I met with a couple people that are authorities on fat biking in the Green Bay area, I said, we'll try to do some fat biking off trail once we get natural snow. They said, we want to ride right down the middle of that trail. That's what we want to do. So I said, okay, we'll find a way to do it. So we're actually holding the Snow Crown Series here this winter as well. So that's going to be in January, and I believe the 20th. And so we're going to do a full fat bike race out on the trails. So you have interest in those different things. There's a crossover between skiers and fat bikers too. So hopefully some people come out and ski for a few hours, and then at 5 p.m. go grab their fat bike and grab something to eat, and then go out and ride. But we're open for the majority of those different activities. So once we get to mountain biking, then we're going to be able to span through the year much better.
So Sean, I bought my very first, well, it's used, but I bought my first fat tire just earlier this year. So I'm itching to try it out.
Well, yeah, I know a place. So
I do too now.
So going back to the facility, trail wise, what are we looking at as far as distances and things like that?
So I'll start with our smallest trail, which is the asphalt roller ski loop that we have, which is meant for roller skiing, running, and walking. And that trail is about, I say there's 3.5 kilometers of asphalt. It's about a 3-kilometer loop, depending upon how you take it. And then when we start making snow in the winter, our trail system is about 5 kilometers long. Okay. So we put snow over the grass area on the north end of our trails, and then we cover the asphalt as well. So we've got those two distances, and the trails are broken up quite nicely. John Morton from Morton Trails designed it. John was a biathlon coach way back in the day, and he's designed many world-class ski courses, bike trails, hiking trails. He's another authority on that kind of stuff. And it was so great getting to work with him. I've read his books, and to be able to have direct conversation with him was amazing. Learned a lot from that guy as well. But he set it up so we've got cutoffs that happen frequently within the course. So there's areas where if you don't want to climb up this big hill, there's a cutoff. And also we're able to have the course set up like we're going to be running the Wisconsin High School sprint championships this winter, and we needed a 1 kilometer and like a 1.3 kilometer course. Well, we have the cutoffs set up, so just don't do that 200 meters, and you have your course distance that you need. And then on top of that, we also have para targets in our range, and those para targets allow adaptive athletes that are in a sit ski, maybe with a spinal cord injury or missing a limb, all the way through visually impaired skiers or para athletes that can shoot on our range. And we have a course designed at 800 meters that has the correct elevation for a sit ski skier or other parasport athletes that, para-Nordic or para-biathlon that want to come and do that. They're able to come and ski those areas and then come into the range and shoot. So many of the athletes, they all shoot in the prone position, which is laying down. And we have 17 caliber air rifles that they use on a 10-meter target line versus the 50-meter target line that the other athletes shoot at. And then we have infrared rifles that are used for some of those athletes as well as youth athletes. And then the visually impaired skiers use headphones, and it's an auditory system that you try to find, move horizontally until you get the pitch to get as high as possible. And then you go vertically until you get the pitch to be as high as possible. And then you take your shot, and you're doing all that while your heart rate's, just like when you get done riding into work, Joe, your heart rate's 160 beats per minute. And now you're trying to sight in a rifle on something to hit it at that distance. So the trails are definitely made up so that we're able to accommodate everybody. And I've had roller skiers come out and said, I don't want to ski that hill. Well, you don't have to. You can just take this cutoff and then go ski the flat areas if that's what you prefer, and work your way up to that as you feel you get better at it.
My wife's family lives in Reedsville. So I've driven through Brillion all the time and driven past. Was this a pretty natural area, or did you guys have to do a lot of moving and land moving and to get it how you wanted to?
So I would say there was a fair amount of shaping that needed to be
Okay.
done. The pond was not. It's not a natural pond. That pond was dug. It's a clay line pond.
Okay.
So they did quite a bit of excavating in an area to build that up. The biathlon range was dug out of the side of a hill, but most of the rest of the area, other than the grading that needed to be done for the trails themselves, there wasn't a lot, I think, other than the earth moving for those areas and that really needed to be done. So it lend itself well to it. I know that when John Morton and Max Cobb came out to look at the potential for putting this venue in there, and they were driving out, they flew into Appleton and they were driving out and they were like, this is flat. How are we going to have a Nordic venue out here? This is flat as can be. And they got to the venue and started walking around and they thought, we can actually make this work. And there's a term called homologation that we would have to have in order to hold a World Cup here. And that's meeting certain criteria for elevation, distance, and those kind of things. And we don't have that capability to be homologated for a World Cup race. So IBU, which is International Biathlon Union, or FIS, which is the International Federation of International Skiing, that if you don't have that, you're kind of out of the running to be able to have a race for that. And that's okay, because the people that come out and say, well, you don't have any big hills, I said, just go ski a lap and then come back and talk to me. And the cool thing about it is that if you climb up a hill, you go down a hill. So you're giving it all back right away. You got to climb up again and you're transitioning constantly. So it's not like you're going out west where you might climb for a kilometer, but then you're like descending for a kilometer here, or more than that, and you get a lot of rest. Here it's up and down and up and down, and you're constantly working. So for me, that's really cool to see people come back in and say, okay, point taken. You can go ski your marathon, ski 10 laps, and you'll get your 50K in, and you'll have skied a bunch of elevation during that. So that's so the venue is not. It wasn't like this is the area we're going to pick because it's got all the stuff we need. Okay. The land was in the family, and it was something that worked, and they were able to make it all happen within that venue. Right where the Round Lake Farms venue is, and overlooks that space.
John Morton must be a lot like a golf course architect. Is that the first step, I guess, in building this, is just for him to get out there and get a feel for the land, take it in, and then he does whatever he does and takes that back and builds a design?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. He's, by getting him on boots on the ground, because he's used to seeing things. And I think, people that are in that design world can visualize things better than most other people. So, looking at, when I was trying to research this place before I even talked to anybody, I'm like looking at Google Earth and looking around Brillion, moving around and around and around. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. There's nowhere where this is, I can't see this anywhere. Now, if I look at it, and there's nothing like on any of the map programs yet that show the trails, I can see them just because I was involved in do we have to change them here? Do we have to move this here? Do we have to put in another trail here? Being involved in that part of it, now it's like I can see the map when I close my eyes, which is great. So yes, so a guy like John can come in and look at it and make something out of it, and then say, this is where your pump house should be, and this is where your pond should be, and this is where the rest of your trails, and this is where your biathlon range should be. And then the rest of it's just up to the capable hands of the excavators and the guys doing the pipe installation and the wiring and all that. These guys were on site for over a year, seeing them every single day. They're not too often you're on a job site that long, I don't think.
Right.
So yes, so getting started is very much like a golf course. I'm
sure. Talking more about just you specifically a little bit. One thing that we didn't talk about, we mentioned that you've been skiing since you were born, basically, but you were in the Birkebeiner a bunch, like 18 times. I mean, that's the largest cross country ski marathon. I mean, what's that experience like? What's that training like? What's that race like?
It's definitely a rite of passage for some people. It's a badge of honor for some people. I got into it because my ski coach said, hey, this Birkebeiner, or the Birkebeiner's coming up. I wasn't old enough to ski the marathon yet, so I went to ski the half marathon, which is called the Kordelopet. and you started at the halfway point and skied to the finish, or started at the beginning with everybody else and skied to the halfway point, I think is the way that it worked at that time. And it was just to get into a sea of, like, my parents dropped me off like, I don't know, at the time, maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people.
Wow.
And they're like, we'll see you later, you know, and I can't imagine letting my kid do that at 14 or 15 years old, or however old I was when we started doing that. But, so yeah, I had a handful of the Coeur d'Alene races in under my belt, before I was of age to be able to do it. And then after that, just kept skiing them, you know, regardless of where I was at in life. If, I had a time period where I said, I don't want to do it if I can't be competitive anymore. You know, and after having my son and really not skiing a lot, you know, I thought, boy, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to have a good time. I want to enjoy skiing, and I'm able to get out and still do that. So there were times when I wouldn't ski a lot when I was younger, and I could still ski a 3-hour marathon or a 3-hour and 15-minute marathon. The training for that it's serious dedication. I mean, at the point where I am right now, I can't put in the time. I can't put in the hours that I used to be able to put in. And as you get older, and, you know, strength and endurance, those two lines kind of start passing each other.
Yes.
You got to figure out how to make it work, and your numbers slide back from a first wave skier. You know, they have all these waves, and so many people gauge how good somebody else is by what wave they ski out of. So whether you're an elite wave skier, a first wave skier, or a fifth wave skier, or further back, you know, you're still completing it. You know, you're getting out there in whatever the elements are the day of, in your skinny ski suit, and you're going to go out and ski a marathon on some of the biggest hills, you know, wow, World Cup hills that in the North Woods of Wisconsin. So the training as a young guy was easier for me. I could get out and ski, or I'd just go and hill run, whatever my coach told me I needed to do at that point in time. And then later in life, just trying to ski 2-3 times a week. A friend of mine that I mentioned earlier, that's an accomplished skier. We'd go out and do like 60, biking during the summer, do 60-mile Sundays. And then the rest of the week we're on our own to do our own interval training. And that was in the heart of it. You know, when I could sleep 3 hours after doing a gig and then go out and ski for 4 hours at 3 or 4 hours in the morning, you know, it's not easy to do that anymore. If I get one of those a week, I'm a lucky guy.
Right.
So, but yeah, to watch those numbers increase and you know, to be getting up to close to the Birch Leggings bib now. And I think that's great. I'm still going to keep doing it. I want to be like Ernie St. Germain, who's the only one that has skied every single Birkebeiner, you know, and this year it's going to be 50 for them. So he's skied every Birkebeiner, and, you know, granted, I haven't skied every one, but I can remember, you know, something unique about every single one that I've skied. So last year I was looking at, this is gonna be great because I'm gonna be at a ski venue. I'm gonna ski every single day. I'm gonna be in great shape, and I'm gonna be able to get a really good finish time this year and a great placement. And I spent more time grooming in the piston bully so that by the time I skied the marathon, I had spent more time skiing the marathon than I actually had time on skis training the whole year. And it's just, I don't know how I survived it. Actually, it was pretty brutal recovery for the next few days. But yeah, everybody, if somebody hasn't skied it and they're you know, aspiring to be a cross country skier, it's definitely a rite of passage to go and do that and get your medal and get your pins every year after that. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you still ride your road bike at all? Your pedal bike?
Yes, yeah. I do ride my road bike quite a few. Yeah, we're where we live in the Delafield area. We're right by the bike path, so I can go out right through the park, and I'm on the bike path. I got an Orbea that I got from a good friend of mine a while ago, and plumbed his house for him, and he gave me the bike. So that was a good trade-off.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. That and a time trial bike. So I still get out and ride both of those when I have opportunity. But now I'm going to have to get into fat biking and mountain biking more than in the past. So keep all my faculties together, so I'm not crashing doing those kind of things.
Absolutely,
so,
and barter away. I love that.
Yeah, no, you gotta. Those bikes are so expensive. Ski gear right now is like so insanely expensive.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the other day, like I have to get another pair of skis, and like, man, I'm gonna have to take out a second mortgage here pretty soon to get some new equipment. So bikes are far worse.
Yes. I'm almost embarrassed to say, being a 50-ish year old person, I don't know how to cross country ski. I maybe did it when I was younger, but do you guys offer classes out there where come out there and learn to cross country ski?
Yes, absolutely. We have Nordic ski lessons for classic skiing, for skate skiing. We have cross-country ski rentals for both classic and skate. We partnered with Pete's Garage out of Green Bay, and Kurt brings down a bunch of skis for us. We have a separate building this year for our rentals to happen out of. So if you want to come out and get a lesson and you don't have skis, we can get you fit up. And then we've got, like I said, different areas in the trail where we can go into our stadium area or a penalty loop area and have a nice flat area to learn how to ski. And you can sign up for that sort of thing at ariensnordic.com and be able to get yourself set up for the year. And once you get your ski lesson in and your rentals, and you decide you want to try shooting biathlon, next thing you know, you'll be addicted to that, and you'll be out there as a biathlete skiing races, a couple times a month.
Olympics, 2055 maybe for me.
So have you like taken advantage and getting out on like pristine and just, I'm going to get out and I'm going to try this because I want to be the first one out on this trail?
So there's a thing called first tracks with cross-country skiers. And when somebody shows up in the morning at, the second the gate opens and gets to ski on it, that's a special thing for people to get sometimes.
Okay.
It doesn't always happen. And I would be lying if I said I haven't done that. But after 12 hours, 14 hours in the groomer, sometimes going out and trying to ski some hills is probably not the best move. So there's times when, yes, I would love to. I'll take that picture and want to lock the gate. But if I see somebody rolling up, I feel really happy for them that they're getting that first tracks option every day. So it's sometimes for me, it's kind of cool because I'll see the same person show up, or there'll be a couple of cars and each of those guys is like vying for it. And then once one guy goes one way, the other guy will go the other way so he can get his own first tracks. So it is a special thing to be able to get those first tracks and experience what most people never get to experience, especially in a race, because it'll have hundreds of people in front of them. And by the time they get to what was once pristine corduroy, it's mashed potatoes. And then you're skiing in that the whole time. So yeah, that's a great question. I like that one a lot.
Your facility too, I mean, you also do events. Like, can you have weddings and just events and things like that there as well, right?
Yeah, so we have, Round Lake Farms is our event venue that we have on site. And that event venue is able to host weddings, through the summer, with a lot of weddings, corporate events, business meetings, those kind of things happen in that event venue. And then during the winter, when it's not used as much for that, we open up the Tiller Bar, which is downstairs of the venue. And so we'll have, food and apps and the full bar open a few nights during the week. And then we have a full service kitchen there now. We just hospitality just hired on a chef and a sous chef. So we're hoping to be able to have other food offerings in kind of a après ski lodge type feel in that venue during the winter, so that skiers can take advantage of that. Specifically when we have large events, we'll be doing that, and then we'll find other times throughout the winter where we can offer some opportunities with that. And then we've been finding out recently that people want to have rehearsal dinners and rehearsal events at the Nordic Center out on the patio that surrounds it. So it's kind of a nice, you got a beautiful backdrop. You're looking out over, a couple hundred acres of of beautiful field and fire pits out there and places to enjoy some music. And we have during the summer we have an open patio and we have bands sometimes that are solo artists that play out there as well, which is nice for some community engagement. But also you have those other opportunities for venue rentals through Round Lake Farms, which is a really great opportunity there.
Well, to make it an even half dozen, this place is just absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to get out there. And I'm going to come out there this winter and take advantage of some of your trails.
Absolutely.
This is just love it. It's been a pleasure. It's been a true pleasure to get to know you and talk to you and just learn about this place. Like I said right at the beginning, just really had no idea that this was here.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. You guys are great. I really love what you guys are doing. You do a great job of this, and after doing quite a few of these, this has been one of my more favorite ones to do here. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Well, second, Joe, thank you so much for your story. First of all, that's incredible. Just learning everything about you, and I like I said, I drive past this facility and pass through Brillion. It seems like more than once a week, but quite a bit. And it is special. It is really, really amazing. And, the Ariens Corporation in a whole, what a wonderful thing it does for the city of Brillion as well. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you guys very much. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Tosh, it's Red Smith Banquet Throwback time. We've got a good one this week. This episode of the Newsa-Cast, we talk a lot about Ariens, which is a fantastic Wisconsin company, and we have another really wonderful Wisconsin company. We've all know this company for sure. Every time we take a shower or step foot in a bathroom, it's the Kohler company.
Absolutely.
And we had Herb Kohler come and grace our presence at the Red Smith Banquet back in 2004.
If you're in sports, you understand why, but you might be like, why would you have a hospitality and plumbing guy come to the Red Smith Sports Banquet? I mean, that's, what the Kohler Corporation is known for. I mean, it's been around for forever. It seems like they're, in a national, not international industry.
We all got to go.
But Herb Kohler, we've all used him. Absolutely. But Herb Kohler, was the visionary behind the golf courses. 1988 Black Wolf Run, beautiful golf course. I've had the pleasure of golfing that course. They added a second 18 in 1990. 1998 they hosted the U.S. Women's Open. So we have 88 and 90 for Black Wolf Run and the Meadows course. Women's U.S. Open in 1998. Then Whistling Straits was added in 1998 as well. And Whistling Straits was 2004 was the first year that Whistling Straits hosted the PGA Championship, which is the year he came to the Red Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons why, like you said, we brought him to the banquet. I thought, one, it was appropriate to crown him the Red Smith Award winner. I mean, he's the very definition of somebody making a difference in the state of Wisconsin. And he, I mean, Tosh, I think it's fair to say he completely changed the way golf is looked at here in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, think about the courses that are here now, like the world-renowned courses. When these lists come out of the top 50 world's best courses, there's 5 of them are in the state of Wisconsin. And Herb Kohler is the one that started that, obviously, with Black Wolf Run. And,
Absolutely.
Now there's a bunch of them now. And they're all kind of clustered in that just 100-mile radius here of basically Lake Winnebago. So it was appropriate that he came and then to have the PGA Championship. I mean, that's a major event coming to the state of Wisconsin.
Right.
Absolutely incredible to think about that was here. And certainly since 2004, we've had Ryder Cups that have been, I mean, that's on the world stage. We've had women's US Opens. We've had another PGA, event and more lined up. And that
Right.
was the vision of Herb Kohler, RIP. But what a guy. And I've got to tell you, that night too, I think In fact, I know he was the very first guest that we ever had at the Red Smith Banquet that arrived via his own personal jet, which parked out at the Outagamie County Airport. He came in, did his thing, and then brought him back out to his jet, and he jetted off to somewhere in the world. I'm not sure where.
That's crazy. I remember sitting and talking with him a little bit, and just you're in awe of a person. You know, I've talked with numerous athletes, but you're talking about somebody who runs a multi-billion-dollar company, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, it's an amazing organization, and just his presence was awe-inspiring.
It really is. It's you're absolutely right, Tash. I mean, the athletes are one thing, and you see them perform, and you're in awe. But to think about a business guy, you know, a true business titan, visionary. I mean, he redefined the world of plumbing. We're not going to get into that, but he also, for the state of Wisconsin, redefined the world of golf and what it can do and the potential and the tourism and everything that leads to. That came from him, and there's not many people like that. And you're right. He's when you're in the same room with him, it's a pretty special feeling.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode. Hope you enjoy this throwback, and continue to listen and to watch on YouTube, and join our podcast anytime on any of the places you get your podcasts, like iTunes or Spotify. And also check out the appletonsportspage.com for any local sports news.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin, and also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to award the 2004 Red Smith Award to the man who has put Wisconsin center stage in the world of golf, Herb Kohler.
Thank you. Thank you. Judge Troy, Mike Reitz, Mr. Kunitz, friends, young people, ladies and gentlemen. I can't tell you what an honor it is to receive an award named for Richard Red Smith. But I have to tell you of an irony. Probably many of you are familiar with it. But the irony really just came home to me very recently. And this irony is that there are two famous Red Smiths, both in sports, both went to Notre Dame, and both at the same time to Notre Dame. The other Smith, Walter Red Smith, became a Pulitzer Prize-winning sports writer, and he once described our Richard Red Smith as large, round, companionable, and patient. Except for the patient part, that's a damn good description of me. But our Red Smith really was an amazing guy, doing double duty as an amateur, a professional, a coach, and a manager, both baseball and football often at the same time. Sure makes you maintain your focus. In the late 30s and early 40s, Red was both manager of the Green Bay Blue Jays and line coach of the Green Bay Packers at the same time. I dare say Red was able to maintain his focus better than I do, bouncing from toilets to engines, to furniture to generators, to horses to hotel rooms, and yes, golf courses. I can really appreciate, though, the level of excellence he was able to achieve in both of these sports. But even more remarkable, he was able to do it while really enjoying his beer. According to Walter Red Smith, Richard Red Smith, a coach of the Chicago Cubs from 1945 to 1948, was less explosive temperamentally than Jim Gallagher, the Cubs general manager, and could consume even more beer than Charlie Grimm, the manager. Red, therefore, was assigned to sit up nights with executives of other clubs in the hope that they might grow mellow enough to trade him either a 20-game winner or a 325 hitter for nothing more than a round of drinks and a player to be named later. In the end, it really must have worked, because in 1945, the Cubs played in the World Series. What I appreciate most about Red is that in the mid-50s, he was able to retire from sports as the general manager of a brewery. By George, maybe I can do the same. When we decided to venture into the golf business, it wasn't because I knew anything about golf. It was solely because of our guests at the American Club, a fledgling resort hotel, kept asking for something more. So we did extensive research, decided we could do this, designated some land on the edge of a wildlife preserve, picked some architects, and in our infinite wisdom, immediately fired them after they staked the first few holes, because they believed that every par 3 and every second shot of a par 4 or par 5 had to look down on the green. And while this would have made our course a lot easier, it also would have made the distance from green to tee a lot longer, because our land moved in and out of a deep river valley left behind by a glacial runoff. Long green to tee walks don't bother golf carts, but they do eliminate tournament play. So it was. We entered another round of architects, and through some mysterious circumstance, even though he had a reputation for moving more dirt than anyone else, he always left behind a landscape that looked more natural and more challenging than any other designer we could find. And so it was, we found Pete Dye. He built 18 holes, and not only did it sell out in its first year, but Golf Digest called it the best new public course of 1988. We built another 9 holes, and it sold out. Then we built a fourth 9 holes, and Golf Digest wrote a 1-page editorial saying that Herb Kohler and Pete Dye had committed the worst crime in golf. They said we had broken up the course that they had designated in 1988 as the best new course, and they made the accusation, interestingly, without looking at either of the new 9s. Never in the world would I have believed that people could be so sensitive with their awards. But to their lasting credit, the following year, when they did view the course, they wrote another 1-page editorial saying that the new 18-hole combinations were equally as good, if not better, than the first. They followed that up in the year 2000 by giving both the courses at Black Wolf Run 5-star awards, and there were only a total of 16 of those kinds of awards out of the 15,000 courses reviewed. Having done our research on the nature of the game, and then having launched full-scale production in the building of 4 golf courses for we amateurs and for major tournament play, I don't think I would encounter anything significantly unanticipated or unexpected. But boy, have I been wrong. Firstly, the national and international awareness and recognition of these golf courses has translated to many of our other products. There is a strong synergistic effect I never would have predicted or expected. Secondly, and more important, the outpouring of support from across Wisconsin. All records were broken in that 98 for the U.S. Women's Open, and they still stand. A year and a half ago, we had 8,000 requests for 3,000 volunteer positions for this 04 championship. Likewise, the advanced ticket sales has surprised PGA officials and in fact has broken all their previous records. I can't say enough about what the support from across Wisconsin means to this and future events. What we've experienced this year will go a long way in determining whether Wisconsin will be awarded future majors, and I am very optimistic. But thirdly, I never expected to discover how important the values of this game and the teaching of those values really are, particularly for young people and particularly for those associated with the first tee who never would be able to experience the game and its values were it not for organizations like that. The self-discipline and the raw integrity required to declare a penalty on oneself is unlike any other game. For young and old alike, it is a rigorous learning and maturation experience like none other. This whole evolution of Kohler into golf, for me, has been a remarkable experience. To be honored with the Red Smith Award for something in itself so fulfilling, I really don't know what to say. I am deeply touched. I thank you.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it's time for that little segment where we forget about something and we want to never forgetting about something as well. So, Joe, what do you have? What do you want to forget that's forgotten?
Well, Tosh, what I'd like to forget. Now, I understand that these things are very helpful and they help solve crime and all of that. But these Ring doorbells, okay, as a letter carrier, I like the big doorbell. I don't mind being on camera. But do they need to talk to me? Do they need to whistle at me? These things now are programmed. The other day, I'm walking and I wear earbuds, so I can certainly hear what's going on, but you're not always super focused on what you're hearing around you. All of a sudden, I hear this whistle. So I look around and I hear somebody start talking to me. And somebody's talking to me through the doorbell. I'm not even up to the porch yet, but these darn things are... they're wigging me out, Tosh. They keep talking to me. So I don't know. I'd like to forget the Ring doorbell. They serve a purpose. They're better than the old fashioned doorbell, the ding dong doorbell, I guess. But I don't know. Kids can't play ding dong ditch anymore. I guess that's a long lost game.
That's true. The doorbell is actually talking to you, not the person inside the house.
I think it's both. I think you can do both because I've had them. I've had them like have a generic whistle, and I don't know if that's supposed to scare you off or whatever, but every time I walk up to the porch, you hear that thing. It always gets me. But I think, because this has happened to me now twice where I've had people actually talking to me, and I have to, it takes a minute to adjust, like, is somebody actually talking to me? But yeah, they can, they're having a video conversation, but you don't expect it. I mean, I don't expect to be talking to somebody and not even up on their porch yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I mean, the technology is amazing, but it maybe this is just an old guy thing, but I need to get adjusted to it because I want to forget it. But
yeah, no, it serves a purpose. That's for sure.
No doubt. So that's my life, Tosh. I don't know. How about you? What are you forgetting?
Well, if our listeners who have come back time and time again probably notice I'm a little stuffed up and voice doesn't sound quite the same. So I want to forget about these winter colds and little respiratory illnesses that we always seem to get once we start heading into winter and travel through winter. I hate these. They're just annoying. They just make you feel like crap, and they pass, but they're annoying. That's all it is for me.
Gosh, you sound great, really.
Just want to pass through and get back so I can actually breathe through my nose again instead of being a mouth breather.
No, I hear you, man. Your head feels like it's going to explode. It's all part of it. I feel bad for you, but yeah, we'll find you a bar and you can go sing the blues for us. How about that?
There you go. Maybe some whiskey.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll help.
It always helps, right? Numbs the pain.
Right. Exactly. So, Joe, what are you never forgetting?
Well, Tash, a great weekend. Thanksgiving Day weekend, and one of the neat things about Thanksgiving Day weekend is just connecting with old friends, and had that opportunity this weekend to just connect with old friends, and I'm never forgetting the fact that I'm fortunate enough that I've had literally lifelong friends that I've had since kindergarten. Tash, you're one of them. We've known each other since 7th grade, but hooked up with a buddy that I've known since kindergarten, and we reconnected, and just made me remember that I'm just never forgetting my lifelong friends. It's I feel really, I don't know, blessed is the right word. I'm not sure that I have lifelong friends. I know not everybody has that, so I feel very fortunate to have that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. That's something the friends that you make, and maybe you don't see for a few years, but then you make a connection again, and you're just back to where you were.
It's funny you say that, because that's exactly
things.
what we said. I mean, we hadn't seen each other, and it's been a long time, like several years, but you just hop right in. The stories start flowing. You start just remembering things from, well, shoot, at this point, 40 years ago, but it's just fresh in your mind, and there's not many people that you can connect on that level. So never forgetting that. And Tash, how about you? What are you never forgetting?
Well, the hockey season officially starts, and I've grown to love hockey rinks. I know they're cold, but there's always a grilled burger or a hot dog. You're sitting next to people cheering on teams, and you're doing it the right way, where you're cheering. You say, hey, even though it was the other team, that was a fantastic pass. So you meet people and you connect with people, and it's just, hockey is a little different. You have to be a little different to be in hockey, and appreciate, what these kids are doing on stake blades and how they handle the puck. And it's a fun environment. And hockey rinks aren't glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. Champion Center might be an exception in some of the new places like the Cornerstone, but for the most part, we're playing in old rinks, and they're cold. Like Shawano, you can see the banners, the wind coming through, because it's a horse barn during the summer. It's they're crazy. So they're old, they're drafty, they're cold, but there's something about them that I will never forget the time that my boys have been playing.
I love that. I'm glad you realize that you're taking it in, because it does go so fast, and to be able to soak those memories in, and those feelings and those smells. I mean, there's certain smells, right, on some of those buildings. It's just that
absolutely,
it's hard to describe. And that concessions too, Tash. Is there anything better than just concessions? I just love it.
No, absolutely not. Well, we were in Sheboygan this weekend at the Sheboygan Lakers Ice Center. Nice. And actually, if you walked into the bathroom, you could see a crack in the wall that went outside. So that's probably not a good thing, but that tells you about the state of ice rinks. But, a cheap cup of coffee, maybe a hot chocolate.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and they're grilling some burgers or some awesome, they had some really good Sheboygan brats at this one.
Yeah, I bet.
So, yep. So good Misfield buns and Misfield brats, and I forgot the bakery. There's a small bakery in Sheboygan that's known for their hard roll brat buns. And that's what they had. It was fantastic.
Gosh, I think I'm going to hop on the Fat Tire and go get some brats for tonight's dinner. You're making me hungry.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, those are some good forgotten and never forgetting. And we appreciate you listening along with us and maybe coming up with some of your own. And if you have some of your own, you should let us know.
Yeah.
Speak to us through socials. Email us and engage with us, and let us know if there's something that we can mention from a listener like you.
Absolutely. Newsa-Cast@gmail.com or any of our socials. Check us out on YouTube. We'd love to connect with you guys. Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from past Red Smith banquets. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thank you to Digstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. One of the best ways to help us grow is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.